My name is Natalie Carter. The text came at 2:17 in the afternoon. I remember the exact time because I stared at the screen for almost a full minute before I reacted. My phone buzzed once beside my laptop. I glanced at it casually, expecting a work notification, maybe a client asking for revisions or one of my team leads checking in. Instead, I saw his name. My fiancé. We had been together for almost 4 years, engaged for 8 months. Our wedding was supposed to happen next spring. We had already toured venues. I had a folder full of floral ideas I kept pretending not to care about. My mother had already started asking which side of the family would sit where, and his friends had started treating him like he was standing at the edge of some beautiful, well-built future. When I opened the message, I knew immediately something was wrong. It was too long. People only write long messages when they're trying to make cruelty sound reasonable. The first sentence made my chest tighten anyway. I found someone else. For a second, my brain rejected it. I read it once, then again, then a third time, slower, like the meaning might change if I gave it another chance. It didn't. I found someone else. Just accept it. Things between us haven't been working for a long time. I don't want to hurt you, but I can't lie anymore. I'm moving on. That was it. No conversation, no warning, no apology worth calling an apology. 4 years reduced to a few clean lines in the middle of a workday, like he was canceling dinner instead of ending a life we had built together. And the strangest part was I didn't feel surprised. Hurt, yes. Humiliated, absolutely. But surprised? No. For the last 3 months, something in him had been shifting. And when you love someone long enough, you learn the difference between stress and secrecy. Stress is distracted. Secrecy is careful. Stress forgets to answer. Secrecy turns the phone face down. At first, the changes were small enough to explain away. He started guarding his phone more closely. He took it everywhere, even when he was just walking into the kitchen. He began having late-night work calls that somehow always sounded softer than work. There were sudden nights out, vague stories, longer office hours, and that overly patient smile people wear when they're lying and hoping your love will do half the work for them. Whenever I asked about it, he gave me the same answer in a different outfit. I'm just busy lately. Work's a mess right now. You know how things get. And because I wanted peace more than suspicion, I let the excuses pile up longer than I should have. Then, 2 weeks before that text, everything snapped into focus. He had left his laptop open on the kitchen counter while he showered. I was using it to order something because mine had died mid-charge, and I remember thinking how ordinary the moment felt. Light coming through the window, coffee gone cold beside me, my engagement ring catching the sunlight when I moved the cursor. Then a message notification appeared in the corner of the screen. A heart emoji next to a woman's name, and beneath it, a preview. I can't wait until she's out of the picture. My whole body went still. There are moments when pain doesn't hit like a blow. It hits like silence, like every sound in the room gets pulled backward. I stared at those words and felt something colder than heartbreak settle into my chest. Before I could talk myself out of it, I clicked. The thread opened, and there it was. Weeks of messages, maybe longer. Flirting first, then private jokes, then plans, then the kind of intimacy that only exists when someone has already decided to betray you and is just waiting for the timing to be convenient. I saw conversations about me written like I was an obstacle, a delay, a problem to manage. I saw the future being built in secret while I was still picking cake flavors and answering relatives who wanted to know if we had set a final date yet. The worst part wasn't even the cheating. It was how deliberate it felt. He wasn't confused. He wasn't torn. He wasn't stumbling into a mistake. He was planning an exit with another woman while sleeping beside me and letting me believe I was still his future. That night, I didn't confront him. I didn't throw his laptop across the kitchen. I didn't wake him up and demand an explanation. I didn't scream. I didn't cry in front of him. I didn't give him the satisfaction of seeing exactly where the knife had landed. I watched him come back into the room, hair damp from the shower, asking if I wanted takeout like he was still a decent man. And I said yes, because somewhere under the grief, a clearer thought had already started forming. Our relationship had never only been emotional, it was financial. When we met, he was drowning in debt and pretending he wasn't. Student loans, credit cards, late fees, rent he barely managed each month. He had ambition, I'll give him that. Charm, too. The kind that makes a man sound temporarily unlucky instead of fundamentally unstable. At the same time, my business had just started doing well. I wasn't wildly rich, but I was comfortable, stable. I had spent years building that stability, and because I loved him, I started sharing it. At first, it was small things: groceries, covering a bill here and there, paying for dinner more often than not because he was getting back on his feet. Then it became bigger. His phone plan, a credit card payment, help when his car needed repairs, money toward the little online business he swore would make him independent one day. I listened to his plans. I believed in his ideas. I paid invoices connected to dreams he described like promises. Eventually, our lives became intertwined in ways that didn't feel dangerous at the time. Shared subscriptions, linked accounts, my card saved in places it didn't belong, his housing supported by my financial credibility, business expenses routed through services under my name, insurance coverage through my company. 1,000 little threads, all tied quietly back to me. When you're building a future with someone, that kind of overlap feels romantic. When you discover they're cheating, it starts to look like infrastructure. So over the next 2 weeks, while he kept smiling at me and texting another woman behind my back, I started preparing. Quietly. I separated accounts, changed passwords, removed my information from anything that should never have depended on me in the first place. I reviewed documents, subscriptions, billing cycles, financing records, and service agreements. I didn't rush. I didn't slam doors. I didn't leave evidence lying around for him to spot. I just got organized. And now, 2 weeks later, his text had finally arrived. Just accept it. I stared at that line again and almost laughed. He really thought he was the one delivering the final blow. He thought he was the one leaving with power. He thought I would shatter on cue and beg for an explanation, maybe even for another chance. Instead, I opened the message box and typed a single word. Finally, I hit send. Then I set my phone down and watched the screen light up almost immediately. His name. Calling. The phone kept vibrating against the desk, sharp and insistent, like it was trying to force a reaction out of me. I didn't move. It rang once, twice, 3 times, then it stopped. A few seconds later, the messages started. What does that mean? Why would you say finally? Natalie, are you serious right now? You're not even going to fight for us? I read every one of them. I didn't answer. Because the truth was, there was nothing left to say. He had already ended it. Not just with that message, but weeks ago, quietly and carefully, while I was still standing in the middle of something I thought was real. Now all that was left was execution. I picked up my phone again, but not to reply to him. I opened my banking app. There's something oddly calm about pressing a button you already decided to press days ago. No hesitation, no second guessing, just action catching up to intention. First, I removed my card from the shared payment account. Then I closed it. Next, I canceled the automatic payment tied to his car loan. The account funding it was mine, and the lender had been drawing directly from me. I ended the authorization, removed my banking access from every related payment profile, and saved the confirmation. Then I moved down the list. Streaming services, cloud storage, business hosting fees, the subscription tied to the website he loved showing off like it was already profitable. Canceled, removed, disconnected. Each step felt less like revenge and more like correction, because none of it had ever truly been shared the way he wanted to pretend. It had all been mine. Voluntary, temporary, conditional on a relationship he had already destroyed. My phone buzzed again. Another call. I ignored it. Then more messages. You're acting crazy. We need to talk about this like adults. You can't just shut everything off like that. I actually smiled at that one. Like adults. The same man who ended a 4-year relationship with a text message was now asking for maturity. I kept going. I opened the document folder where I had saved copies of everything over the past 2 weeks. Lease paperwork, payment confirmations, account ownership details, billing statements with my name stamped across them like quiet proof. I didn't need to send them. Not yet. Just knowing they were there was enough. By the time the afternoon faded into evening, I had finished. Every account I had been supporting was gone. Not paused. Not delayed. Gone. I leaned back in my chair and exhaled slowly. For the first time since that message came in, I felt something close to balance. Not relief. Not peace. Just alignment. My phone went quiet. No calls. No messages. I wondered if he had finally realized that something was wrong. Not emotionally. Logistically. Because the kind of life he had been living didn't collapse all at once. It cracked in pieces. A payment that didn't go through. A login that suddenly failed. A service that stopped working without warning. Confusion before panic. I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and poured myself a glass of water. My hands were steady. That surprised me. I thought I'd be shaking by now. Crying, maybe. angry enough to break something just to feel like I had control over at least one part of the situation. But I wasn't, because control wasn't something I had lost. It was something I had just taken back. The knock on my door came just after 9. Sharp. Impatient. I didn't rush to answer it. I already knew who it was. I walked over slowly, unlocked the door, and pulled it open just enough to see him standing there. His expression hit me first. Not anger, not confidence, confusion. The kind that comes when reality doesn't match the version of events you already decided was true. "Natalie," he said, stepping forward like he still had the right to close the distance between us. "What the hell is going on?" I didn't step back. I didn't invite him in. I just looked at him. Really looked at him. The man I had planned to marry. The man who had just told me to accept it. "What do you mean?" I asked calmly. His jaw tightened. "My accounts. My car payment didn't go through. My card got declined. He stopped himself, running a hand through his hair like he was trying to reset the moment. "Everything's messed up. Did you do something?" There it was. Not "we need to talk." Not "I'm sorry." Just confusion about the consequences. "Yes," I said. One word. The same simplicity he had given me. His eyes narrowed slightly. "Why?" I held his gaze. "Because you told me you found someone else." "That doesn't mean you get to just—" He cut himself off, frustration creeping into his voice. "We had shared responsibilities, Natalie. You can't just pull everything out overnight." Shared. That word again. I almost laughed. Instead, I tilted my head slightly. "Shared?" "Yes, shared," he snapped. "We were building a life together. You don't just—" "You ended that life," I said, cutting through him cleanly. "Remember?" He went still. For a second, something flickered across his face. Not guilt. Realization. But it didn't last long. "This is overreacting," he said, shaking his head like he could still frame this as my mistake. "We need to sit down and figure this out like normal people." "There's nothing to figure out," I replied. "You made your decision. I made mine." His expression shifted again. This time there was unease in it, because for the first time, he was starting to understand that I wasn't emotional. I wasn't reacting. I had already acted. "You're being ridiculous," he said, but there was less conviction in it now. "You're really going to throw everything away over this?" I met his eyes. "You already did." That one landed. I could see it in the way his shoulders stiffened, in the way his mouth opened slightly like he had something to say, but couldn't quite find the version of it that would still leave him in control. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he exhaled sharply and stepped back. "This isn't over," he said. I didn't answer, because for me it already was. I closed the door, and as the lock clicked into place, I realized something quietly, almost gently. The real consequences hadn't even started yet. They would, just not that night. Not the next morning, but soon. And when they did, he was going to understand exactly what he had walked away from. 3 days passed after that. 3 quiet, almost unnatural days. The first night, after he left my door, the messages came fast and sharp. Anger dressed up as urgency. "You can't just shut everything off like that. We need to talk. This is insane, Natalie." I read them. I didn't answer. By the second day, the tone changed. Shorter messages, less certainty, a pause between each one, like he was waiting for me to break first. I didn't. By the third day, there was nothing. No calls, no texts, no attempts. And that told me more than anything he had said before. Because silence like that doesn't come from peace. It comes from problems. I assumed he had moved in with her. That was the story he had built, wasn't it? The better life, the easier option, the upgrade he thought he had found. People don't leave without a plan, or at least they think they don't. That afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. Normally, I would have ignored it, but something about the timing made me answer. "Hello?" There was a brief pause, then a calm, professional voice came through the line. "Good afternoon. Am I speaking with Ms. Natalie Carter?" "Yes," I replied, already leaning back in my chair. "Who is this?" "My name is Robert Hale. I'm an attorney representing Mr. Daniel Reed." I let the name sit there for a second. "My fiancé, or former fiancé." "I see," I said. There was a soft clearing of his throat on the other end, like he was preparing to step into a conversation he already knew wouldn't be simple. "I'm calling regarding several financial matters that have recently changed," he continued carefully. I crossed one leg over the other, completely at ease now. "This should be interesting." A small pause. Then he went on, choosing each word like it mattered. "My client informed me that multiple financial accounts connected to him have recently been terminated." "Yes," I replied calmly. "That's correct." Another pause. Longer this time. "He believes those accounts were shared financial responsibilities between the two of you." I almost laughed. "I'd like to clarify something," I said. "Every one of those accounts was under my name or funded directly by me." Silence. Then, more carefully now, "Could you elaborate?" "Of course. I kept my tone even, not defensive, not aggressive, just factual. His apartment application depended on my financial backing. His car payments were coming out of my account. His business hosting was billed to my card. His health insurance came through my company. Each sentence landed slower than the last. On the other end of the line, nothing. Then finally, I see. I leaned back again, letting the quiet stretch. So your position, he continued, is that these were voluntary contributions. That's exactly what they were. And you've decided to discontinue them? Yes. No hesitation. No apology. Just truth. Another pause followed, long enough that I could almost hear him recalculating the situation in real time. My client claims there was an understanding that these arrangements would continue, he said carefully. I smiled, just slightly. 2 days before you called me, your client sent me a message saying he had found someone else. Silence. A deeper kind this time. The kind that shifts the weight of a conversation. I see, the lawyer said quietly. As far as I'm concerned, our relationship ended right there, and with it, any financial support I was providing. There was no argument, no pushback, just a soft exhale on the other end. I suspected that might be your position. Good. Then came the question I had been expecting from the moment he introduced himself. Would you be willing, he said slowly, to restore any of those accounts temporarily while these matters are being resolved? I didn't even think about it. No. The word came out clean. Final. He paused again, but this time there was something different behind it. Not negotiation. Acceptance. I understand, he said. But the call didn't end there, because reality doesn't arrive all at once. It comes in waves. Later that same evening, my phone rang again. Same number, I answered. Mr. Hale. Yes, he replied. I apologize for calling again. What's going on? A brief hesitation. My client's vehicle was repossessed this afternoon. I leaned back slowly, staring at the ceiling for a second. That was fast. Yes. It appears the loan itself was not in his name, and when the payment stopped, the lender acted accordingly. That's how loans work, I said. Another pause. He is also facing complications with his housing situation. I closed my eyes for a second. Apartment. Of course. My financial support on that file was withdrawn, I said calmly. If he couldn't meet the requirements on his own, the landlord would reassess. Yes, the lawyer admitted quietly. Then he added, he is experiencing several unexpected financial complications. I'm sure he is. There was a shift in his tone now. Less formal. More honest. May I speak candidly? He asked. Go ahead. My client seems to have believed you were bluffing. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Soft, but real. He underestimated me. But the lawyer wasn't finished. There's another issue. Of course there is. The online business, he continued. The website went offline. I nodded slowly. The hosting expired. The payment account connected to it was mine. Yes, so it's gone. Another pause. Then, carefully, the individual your client left you for was under the impression that business was profitable. I smiled. There it was. The illusion. And from what I understand, he continued, that perception is now changing. I leaned back into my chair. I imagine it is. Because the truth was simple. Everything he had shown her, everything he had used to look stable, successful, independent, had been built on something he never mentioned. Me. And without that, there was nothing left to hold it up. The call ended not long after. But I knew, even before I set my phone down, this wasn't over. Not for him. Not yet. Because the first wave had only just hit. And the rest was still coming. The calls didn't stop after that. If anything, they became heavier, like each one carried something worse than the last. The next morning, my phone rang before I had even finished my coffee. Same number. I answered without hesitation. Mr. Hale. Good morning, Ms. Carter, he replied, voice more subdued than the day before. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. You're not. What happened? A pause. My client was formally notified this morning that his lease is being terminated. I didn't respond immediately. Not because I was surprised, but because I was picturing it. The letter. The landlord. The moment it all became official. When financial backing is withdrawn, I said calmly, landlords reassess risk, especially when the tenant doesn't meet the requirements alone. Yes, he said quietly. That appears to be the case here. Another pause. He's been given a limited window to vacate. I took a slow sip of my coffee. And where is he planning to go? There was hesitation now. Not from me. From him. I believe he is currently staying with the other woman. I almost smiled. Of course he was. The backup plan. The better option. Except now it wasn't looking so stable anymore, was it? That sounds temporary. Yes, Mr. Hale admitted. It does. Then he added, there is also the matter of the credit line. I leaned back slightly. Which one? The account he previously had access to. Authorized access, I corrected, not ownership. Yes, he said, that one. And? He attempted to use it last night. I raised an eyebrow. And? It declined. I let out a soft breath through my nose. I would imagine it did. Another pause. Ms. Carter, I need to ask, was there any prior agreement that he could continue relying on that account independently? No. Simple. Immediate. Everything connected to that account was tied to me, not him. I understand, he said. But the way he said it sounded less like acknowledgement and more like confirmation of a problem he couldn't fix. We ended the call shortly after. By then, the pattern was clear. Each day, something else collapsed. Each day, another piece of the life he thought he was stepping into disappeared. That afternoon, my phone buzzed again. A message this time. Not from him. From a number I didn't recognize. I stared at it for a second before opening it. This is ridiculous. You need to fix this. He said you're just being emotional. I read it twice. Then I smiled. So that was her. The other woman. The one who couldn't wait until I was out of the picture. Now suddenly, I was very much part of it again. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Reality was already answering for me. That evening, Mr. Hale called again. I picked up. Another issue? I asked. Yes. A pause. He attempted to access the business accounts today. And? He can't. Of course he can't. The payment gateway has been disconnected, he continued. Without it, there's no revenue flow. I nodded slowly. That's correct. Another silence. Then, there's more. Go ahead. The woman he is currently staying with is reconsidering the situation. I laughed. Not loudly. But enough. That didn't take long. No, Mr. Hale admitted. There was something almost human in his voice now. Less lawyer, more observer. She believed he was financially stable, that the business was established, that his lifestyle was self-sustained. And now? A pause. Now that perception is changing. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling again. Because this was the part people never think about when they cheat. They imagine the new relationship in isolation. Better, easier, more exciting. They don't imagine what happens when the truth shows up with receipts. She's leaving, isn't she? I said. He didn't answer immediately, but he didn't need to. I believe there is significant tension. I closed my eyes for a second. Not out of pity, just acknowledgement. Because the collapse wasn't dramatic. It wasn't explosive. It was structural. Everything he had built his exit on was disappearing one piece at a time. And now he was standing in the middle of it, with nowhere stable to land. Mr. Hale, I said after a moment. Yes? Is he asking for anything yet? A pause. Not directly. I smiled faintly. He will. I suspect so. We ended the call shortly after that, and for a while everything went quiet again. No messages. No calls. No attempts to reach me. Just silence. But this time, it didn't feel like distance. It felt like pressure building. Because people don't stay quiet when they're losing everything. They pause. They calculate. They try to figure out the fastest way to stop the fall. And eventually, they reach for the only thing left. Me. The next call didn't come from an unknown number. It came from him. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, watching his name sit there like something from a life that already felt distant. He let it ring longer this time. Not impatient. Not aggressive. Just waiting. I answered. I didn't say hello. Neither did he. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, Natalie. His voice was different. Not sharp, not confident. Lower. Careful. Like he was stepping onto something unstable and didn't know if it would hold. Yes? Another pause. I think we need to talk. Of course. There it was. Not, I'm sorry. Not I made a mistake. Just we need to talk. I leaned back in my chair. What exactly is there to talk about? A small exhale on his end. Everything. This situation. I almost smiled. You mean the situation where you told me you found someone else? It's not that simple. It seemed pretty simple when you sent it. Silence. Then, I didn't think you'd react like this. There it was. Expectation. He had expected tears, arguments, maybe even begging. But not this. Not consequences. What exactly were you expecting? I don't know, he admitted. Just not this. I let that sit there. Because that sentence said more than anything else he could have tried to explain. You didn't think I would stop supporting you, I said. He didn't answer. But he didn't deny it either. I wasn't using you, he said quickly, like he needed to correct something before it settled into truth. I didn't say you were. But you're acting like... I'm acting like someone who ended a relationship, I cut in. Which is exactly what you did. His breathing shifted, slightly heavier now. I made a mistake, he said. Ah, there it was. Not I chose someone else. Now it was a mistake. What kind of mistake? A long pause. The kind you don't realize until it's already done. I tilted my head slightly. Or the kind you realize when things stop working out the way you expected. Silence. That one landed. I didn't plan for this to happen, he said finally. I almost laughed. You planned it enough to tell her you couldn't wait until I was out of the picture. His breath caught. Just for a second. And in that second, I knew. He hadn't expected me to know that part. Where did you— Your laptop, I said simply. Another silence. He exhaled slowly. Okay, then you know everything. No, I replied. I know enough. The line went quiet again. Then, she's gone. Of course she was. I didn't react. She left yesterday, he continued, voice tighter now. Things got complicated. Complicated. That word again. Everything always becomes complicated when reality shows up. I'm sure they did. She thought— He stopped himself, then tried again. She thought I was in a different position financially. I closed my eyes briefly. Of course she did. They usually do, I said softly. Another pause. Natalie, he said again, this time slower. I messed up. Yes, he did, but not in the way he thought. You didn't just mess up, you made a decision. I can fix it. I opened my eyes. No, you can't. Yes, I can, he insisted, urgency creeping in now. We can sit down, figure things out, put everything back the way it was. Why would I want that? I asked. That stopped him completely. Because for the first time, he wasn't talking from a place of control. He was talking from need. Because we had something real, he said at last. We did, I replied. Past tense. He heard it. I knew he did. And you threw it away. Silence again. Longer this time. I didn't think you'd let me go like this, he admitted. There it was. The truth behind everything. He thought I would hold on for him, even after he let go of me. That's the part you misunderstood, I said. I already let you go the moment I read that message. Everything after that was just me catching up to that decision. Another silence. Then, can we meet? There it was. The next step. I don't think that's necessary. Please, he said quickly. Just once. We can talk face to face. I can explain everything. Explain. As if there was still something left to explain. I looked out the window. The same city. The same movement. Everything still intact. I already understand everything, I said. You thought you had a better option. You left. And now that option is gone. Silence. Then, that's not fair. I almost smiled. It's accurate. He didn't respond. Because he couldn't. After a few seconds, he spoke again, quieter now. What am I supposed to do? And there it was. The question he never thought he would have to ask. Not about us. About himself. I closed my eyes for a second, then answered honestly. That's not my responsibility anymore. The line went completely still. Then finally, I regret it. I believed him. But regret comes late. Too late. I know, I replied. And then I ended the call. I set my phone down slowly. And for the first time since everything started, I felt something shift. Not anger. Not satisfaction. Just closure. Because the truth had finally caught up to him. Not the version he told himself. The real one. And now he had to live with it. Alone. The calls from his lawyer slowed after that. Not because the problems were solved, but because there was nothing left to negotiate. Everything that had been holding his life together had already been cut cleanly, one piece at a time. The car was gone. The apartment was no longer secure. The business, at least the version of it he had shown the world, had disappeared the moment the payments stopped. And the relationship he had left me for didn't survive long enough to matter. For a few days after our last call, my phone stayed quiet. No messages from him. No attempts to reach me. No indirect pressure through anyone else. Just silence. The kind that doesn't feel empty. The kind that feels finished. I went back to work. Meetings. Deadlines. Conversations that had nothing to do with him. It felt strange at first, stepping into a routine that no longer included the person I had built it around. But with every passing hour, that absence felt less like something missing and more like something removed. Clean. Necessary. One afternoon, about a week later, my phone rang again. Same number. Mr. Hale, I answered. Ms. Carter. Mr. Hale. His voice was calm, but there was something else in it now. Finality. I won't take much of your time, he said. I'm calling to confirm that my client will not be pursuing any further discussion regarding the financial matters. I nodded slightly. I assumed as much. A brief pause. He understands your position, the lawyer continued, and given the documentation involved, there is no legal basis to challenge it. Of course there wasn't. Because everything had been exactly what I said it was. Voluntary. Conditional. Mine. Thank you for letting me know, I replied. There was a hesitation on the other end. Then, if I may, I've handled situations like this for a long time. I didn't respond. I just let him continue. It's rare to see someone so composed under these circumstances. I looked out the window. The city was moving the same way it always did. Nothing about it had changed. Just my place in it. Composure doesn't mean it didn't matter, I said. I didn't mean to imply that, he replied quickly. I know. A pause. Then, quietly, he regrets it. I closed my eyes for a moment. Not because it hurt, but because it didn't. I'm sure he does. Another silence. And then, that will be all, Ms. Carter. Take care. You too. The line went dead. And just like that, it was over. Completely. No more loose ends. No more calls. No more unfinished conversations waiting to happen. Just the truth sitting exactly where it had always been. I set my phone down on the table and let out a slow breath. 4 years. 8 months engaged. Countless small moments that once felt permanent. All of it ended with a single message. Just accept it. The irony was, I did, but not the way he expected. Because he thought he was the one walking away. He thought he was choosing something better. He thought I would be the one left behind, trying to hold on to something already broken. Instead, he walked away from the one person holding his entire life together. And by the time he realized it, there was nothing left to come back to. I stood by the window for a while, watching the reflection of the city lights settle into the glass. Calm, steady, unmoved. For the first time in a long time, I felt the same way. Not angry, not bitter, just clear. Because some endings don't need closure. They are the closure. And sometimes the only thing left to do is walk forward without looking back.